Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So imagine an artist handing over their profile and saying, hey, analyze my SoundCloud deeply, like really get in there. Well, that's exactly the kind of forensic, hyper-specific breakdown we're doing today. We're looking at a deeply fragmented digital artifact, an obscure 9-track playlist from an artist known only as 𝔟𝔯𝔢𝔫. There's no biography here, no press photos, not even a standard album cover. Literally all we have is text, timestamps, and the chaotic digital environment they exist within.
Now, you might be wondering, how do you even do that? I mean, when all we have to go on are 9 track names dropped between May 24th and May 25th, 2026, and some really jarring platform error messages, how on earth do we piece together what the artist actually meant? We've all left weird digital breadcrumbs online, right? Late-night posts, hastily deleted texts, carefully curated updates. But today we're going to see how the metadata itself becomes the art, creating a dense, emotional landscape before a single note of music is even played.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the chronology of a digital drop. Let's look at the timeline.
Take a look at this rapid-fire release schedule. It kicks off with a super tightly clustered drop on May 24th, followed by this solitary morning release, and then a final afternoon wave on May 25th. Think about your traditional album rollout for a second. You've got months of marketing, perfectly timed singles, a massive PR machine. This is the exact opposite. It's erratic. These are punctuated bursts of expression that feel way less like a calculated marketing strategy and much more like someone just trying to purge an emotion before they lose their nerve.
Moving into our next section, May 24th, Defiance and Despair. Let's really zero in on that very first cluster that hit at precisely 14:14:08
Right off the bat, the second track of the drop, titled Beat This, confronts us with this intense, aggressive simplicity. By using just lowercase letters and an exclamation point, it broadcasts pure, unpolished defiance. It literally reads like a challenge. And it's fascinating because lowercase aggression is such a staple of modern internet culture. When we're genuinely mad online, we don't even bother hitting the shift key. We just fire it off raw. It's an instant defensive wall, thrown up to keep you at arm's length.
But then, contrast that aggression with the fourth track, Please Stay. Look at the hyphen connecting the words, that nostalgic 2000s-era tech speak, dropping the vowels, and, crucially, that trailing period. That tiny dot creates this desperate, quiet plea that completely undercuts all the chest puffing we just saw in Beat This. It feels small, like the air slowly leaking out of a balloon, a whisper just typed out into the void.
So the absolute craziest part about this intense emotional whiplash happens at the exact same timestamp. We've got this tough external posturing colliding instantly with deeply personal, totally unstructured keystrokes. You see it again with the track I'm the Sun, no space, slamming into a hard period. It feels so rushed, like panicked typing during a total emotional peak. And honestly, how often do we all do that? Present this hardened shell to the world while secretly typing out a quiet, panicked plea behind our screens. This artist is literally handing us both realities in the exact same second.
Okay, now this brings us to a really fascinating piece of the artist's unique shorthand. We first see it in the track 𝔟𝔯𝔢𝔫, setting up this motif of duality that we absolutely have to decipher across the playlist. It's 𝔟/no. Is it no, as in having total knowledge of a situation, or is it no, like a complete rejection? It heavily implies a simultaneous state of both, a really deep internal conflict baked right into the spelling itself. It's like they know the truth, but they're violently rejecting it at the exact same time.
Let's move on to the next day, May 25th, Aesthetic Vulnerability. We see a dramatic evolution happen here. Dropping totally alone in the morning, this screen-filling title shifts entirely into this incredibly intricate Gothic font. The panic typing from yesterday, completely gone. Instead, the artist applies this massive visual weight and classical tragedy to a standard internet abbreviation for so much. It reads, I hated love, SM, but it's disguised in the grand typography of an ancient manuscript. It's literally like asking a 14th century monk to transcribe an angsty teenager's group chat. It elevates a fleeting, online emotion into something that feels historically profound.
So, comparing the 2 days, we've clearly moved from these raw, messy keystrokes to highly deliberate, elevated aesthetic choices. And we see this even more clearly with the afternoon track, which explicitly references Pablo Picasso's famous painting, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. Now, that specific painting is legendary as a foundational work of Cubism, right? A style that completely shatters traditional perspective and breaks subjects down into jagged, disconnected fragments. By bringing Picasso into this, the artist is basically telling us, hey, my own digital reality, my own perspective, has been shattered and reassembled into these jagged textual fragments.
When we track these typographical motifs across the whole playlist, a super clear pattern emerges. See how the trailing periods act as blunt, definitive stops to phrases like fog and ignorance? It reads like a heavy door just slamming shut. But then, look at the structural isolation. Why use heavily spaced letters for RAINDROPS? Well, because those spaces visually mimic the physical isolation of literal tears falling down a face. The text itself is performing the action. It's not just a track title anymore, it's concrete poetry.
And that leads us to the final track title, which brilliantly brings back our 𝔟𝔯𝔢𝔢 prefix. But this time it uses hard brackets. It is literally caging and trapping the concept of vulnerability inside the text itself. The words are entirely enclosed by that harsh punctuation. There is quite literally no escape from those brackets. It forces us as the viewer to confront that awful feeling of being trapped by our own emotional openness.
Which brings us to our final section, the digital void. Platform as poetry. To really finish this deep dive, we have to look past the tracklist itself and examine the actual canvas. The SoundCloud interface actually interrupts the whole viewing experience with this really jarring technical error. Sorry, something went wrong. Now normally, we just refresh the page, get annoyed, and ignore it. But in the context of this explainer, surrounded by this incredibly raw playlist, this message eerily mirrors the emotional distress of the track names. The machine's cold apology feels like a direct extension of the artist's own broken state. The medium of the internet is inherently unstable, and here that instability actually becomes part of the performance. And then, of course, we hit this standard browser prompt. Is your network connection unstable? When you place that question next to a playlist obsessing over fragmented relationships and vulnerability, this boring technical diagnostic suddenly turns into a profound metaphor. It perfectly speaks to the isolation and relational disconnect haunting St. Brevin's whole tracklist. We end up projecting our own human frailties onto the unfeeling diagnostic tools of our computers, realizing that, hey, maybe our actual human network connection is what's truly unstable. The platform basically forces us into this sterile loop of disconnection. We hit a wall, we're offered these empty corporate solutions, download Safari or try Chrome, and ultimately, we are just left staring at a stark, hyperlinked cry, I need help. The user experience of a crashing web page perfectly, beautifully parallels the emotional breakdown of the artist. Because just like in real life, when we're facing an emotional breakdown, the sterile corporate solutions offered to us almost never fix the underlying instability. So when we step back and look at this deeply fragmented digital footprint, I want to leave you with this. Is the incompatibility of our browser just a mere accident? Or is this error the ultimate, inescapable vulnerability the artist actually wants us to feel? Next time a page fails to load or an app crashes on you, ask yourself, is the machine broken? Or is it just reflecting the fractured reality of the human on the other side of the screen? Thanks for hanging out and exploring this with me. Keep analyzing the structures around you, because sometimes the medium truly is the message.